Insert cheesy intro here. And while you listen to the beautiful sounds of my guitar, I want you to think about all the freight we're going to look at today. Stay tuned right after this. Yes. Good morning. It is. Let's see. Remove that. There we go. Good morning. Hope all is well. It is Friday, October 24th. Next Friday is Hallows Eve. I wish I had the echo thing that I could add to this real quick, but I'm not that talented. Anyways, good morning. Hope all is well. We are. Man, dude, this year is counting down like boom, 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 right? And let me check something here. The algorithms are definitely not my friend right now. So, but anyways, there we go. Randy, Bull of the Woods, what's up? TODM. What's that mean? I'm kind of dumb. What's that mean? Now the animals are acting up. Hey. Yes, chaos. That is my life. If I sit there and do nothing, then nothing happens. But the minute I try to accomplish something, then all chaos ensues. You know, the dog and cats go off and everything, and it's a whole thing, right? If I try to do something constructive, that's when work gets in the way, and so I have to stick to work because that seems to be the only thing I'm meant to do in this life. Dog is acting up out of nowhere. Hey, come here. Lay down. Lay down. I got this freeze-dried liver. Lay down. Lay down. Stay. Stay. Good boy. All right. So I'm sure that's what you wanted to tune into. Hope you got your coffee this morning. It is a chilly, like 40 degrees or something like that around here. It's been feeling like October, which is good because October's almost over. Let's see. Randy's in. You are alive. You are alive. You are alive. TJ, and then International Man of Mystery. What's up, Jones? And then Bowl of Woods. Top of the morning. There we go. 44 in Philly. Yeah, it's feeling like October, definitely. This was always my favorite time of year to go into, because I used to go to Pennsylvania all the time as a company driver, because tolls weren't my problem, fuel wasn't my problem. They had a steady gig picking up in Rickett Benkheiser, going up to Rickett Benkheiser and Mechanicsburg, and always loved that route. I mean, it the beginning of Pennsylvania from the line to New Stanton was kind of a pain in the butt because of all the construction that was going on. But for the most part, once you got on the turnpike, man, it was pretty good. I used to overindulge on quad mocha, um, quad mochas off the Starbucks out of the travel plazas. That was probably what contributed to my pre-diabetes, right? Um, 2,000 calories, 1,000 grams of sugar, whatever. But I enjoyed driving because this time of year you got the leaves and you got it's not snowing yet, so we don't have to worry about that. But it was always a good drive. I um I enjoyed that. Now as became owner operator, as I became an owner operator, yeah. I didn't run Pennsylvania that much. I ran one load with Schneider up to there. Not a couple of times with Schneider, and then as a like contractor, I went up there once, maybe twice, but anyways, I didn't go up there that much because I like my routine, I like my area, but sometimes you just got to expand because the freight's just not in that area for a minute. About twice a year, Ohio market kind of dies, and that's usually where I headed to. Um, People used to criticize me because I used to do a lot of the same stuff over and over. But the reality is, I liked consistency of where I went. And for the spikes, every now and then I would go down to Florida, but not too deep. I've never been to Miami. The furthest south as a civilian I went down was Cocoa Beach. That was when I was visiting my sister. But as a driver, I take it back. As an owner operator, I've never been further south than Orlando. I don't think I mess with the Tampa market too much. It was either Jacksonville, Ocala, or maybe Orlando when it was paying big. Like I'm talking like $4,000 to come from Springfield, Missouri. Um, but the furthest south as a driver, when I was a company driver, is I did go in the Everglades to pick up a load of sugar, and that sucked. I hated that run. Um, Maybe because sugar plants are just yeah, it's worse than paper mills, right? Sugar mills are worse in my opinion. But I digress here. I'm rambling on for no reason. I've been kind of I don't know. I've been kind of messed up in the head here lately. So just you have to forgive me. So, anyways, but every now and then I stayed with the same thing. I did the same thing. I liked consistency. If I can make equal money back and forth, that's what I did. I don't mind seeing the same interstate over and over and over. I don't need this adventure, this glamorous adventure. I did all that as a company driver. As an owner operator, I was more about consistency, knowing what I was getting into, and that kind of thing. So, um, welcome back. It says boycott PA. It's not called live diabetes, right? Right. Well, thanks to LVC and other people in that circle, I've been able to keep that at bay and improve my health and lose 120 pounds. So that's good. My buddy just acquired a new fuel hauling gig out of Joplin. It said it took him 6 months to get hired there. Not sure who the company is, but I thought that was cool. Yeah, if you are wanting to get off the interstate and get into a high paying company job, fuel is I know a lot of people, like a lot of the friends that I started driving with, um, that's what they do now. A lot of them are fuel haulers, it's good money, good benefits, but it's hard work in a sense that, well, number one, you got a bomb on your back all the time, but the other part is that you're working 12, 14 hours, you're sharing a truck with somebody else, and if they're running behind on their shift, then it puts you behind on your shift, and then so there's a lot of work, and a lot of if you make one mistake, like put the wrong fuel in the wrong tank, that's you're basically fired. It's a hard life, but I know a lot of people that are having a pretty rewarding career for it. So if those of you watching that aren't owner operators, that you want to get a steady gig that's a day cab job and you're home, look at the fuel. You're going to start on the low, so you're going to start on the shift that no one wants. You're going to have the days off that no one wanted, but then eventually, because of turnover, you're going to be able to work your way up on the ranks pretty quickly. What are you doing, dog? Here. This dog is at my feet all the time. So, but good on him, man. Hope he enjoys it. Ever been to Philly, tri-state? I have been, not inside Philadelphia, but I've been through it. Pittsburgh was the only major city I went through, like inside Pennsylvania. And that was interesting. I picked up a load of hard liquor that had multiple stops, and one of the stops was inside Pittsburgh. And that was probably one of the tightest runs I've done as far as like space and dealing with traffic and all that. And then because they were usually multi-stop, hard liquor runs were always multi-stop. They're always lighter. And then you were finding yourself in these little mom and pop liquor stores. And so like the other stop on that run was College Station, Pennsylvania. And that got interesting because the GPS failed completely. Like I had to recon everything, and it was a good training moment. I was training at the time, and GPS was like, yeah, go down this road. And you're like, yeah, don't go down that road. So you got to be careful with that. If you boycott PA, then you boycott the rest of the Northeast, avoiding being physically abused by the tolls and laws, no parking. I agree with that. New Snorelord segment called Back in My Day. Pale Rider's always doing that. He's already did that, right? Boycotting the Northeast will be a move of having some kind of mental stability. My buddy is a fuel hauler for Sonico. Union does great. Yep. Oh, yeah. Union jobs are definitely high paying. Not far from the California truck crash. Yeah. I was going to mention that. So we're seeing this uptick in publicizing, because I believe a lot of these accidents have been happening for quite a while, but now we're publicizing them to show what drivers are dealing with, because now you have non-trucking channels sharing these videos of like the guy in the U-turn, and then of course the crash there in California earlier this week, which I posted on Facebook on the Snorelord Facebook page. I posted the clip of that crash, and it just, back in the day, there you go, LVC. Back in the day, we used to joke, did you get your CDL out of a Cracker Jack box? Or they're just passing these things out like candy. Wow. Apparently we were right. They are just passing them out like candy. And how many more people are going to be affected by this until something is truly done about it? Like they're trying. They're bringing publicity to it. They're bringing, they're trying to put people out of service, but it doesn't seem to slow them down. And, it's going to be like roaches, it's you get rid of one, there's 10 more to take its place. And it's just, I don't know, if there's an end in sight. It's not like you're going to lose 200,000 drivers all at once. If you did that, then rates will go up. However, the corporatists are going to do everything they can to keep that from happening, because they don't want to pay out the yin yang to move their stuff. So Let's see. Yeah, he's on night shift to start. Yeah, that's common. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't go that route, because I had the opportunity twice to go that route. And now I don't think I would qualify. Number one, I don't have my hazmat anymore, but number two, I haven't physically driven a truck in like 2 years. So the last time I moved a truck with a trailer was when I had to move the flatbed that's someone abandoned, and I had to move it back to our safe haven. So that was it. Um, and so I would definitely, I don't know. I had a friend of mine that went to go that route, and they wouldn't hire him up in the Northeast. They wouldn't hire him because he was a owner operator. He was an ex owner operator. In other words, oh, you've been a contractor for so many years. We don't hire people like that because they tend to be problem children. And because you're used to calling the shots, and a lot of companies, that's a big turnoff for them. So they want to say jump and you say how high. And owner operators that have been owners for or lease ops for a long time tend to not want to do that. So let's see. Mark, PA has state stores. Snorelord, great morning. Grind and pray, what's up? Thank you for your membership. Hello, chat. Morning, everyone. $150, get a CDL California, no questions asked. I believe that. So, yes, latest driver actually failed CDL test over 10 times and still out on the roads interstate. Yeah, I heard that was about the U-turn guy, but the guy that caused the crash in California, I don't know. I don't think he was the one that failed 10 times, but I mean, we've seen it at the truck stops. We've seen it at the shippers and receivers. There are certain customers you can go to, and they'll have a sign saying, "Hey, for $20, we'll back the trailer for you." And then a lot of warehouses now are like, "Just drop a trailer here, we'll back in the door," because they don't want everything, all smashed up. So I mean, it's it's a bad thing out there, and now we're just now starting to do something about it. It's a problem that we've been talking about for years and years, right? So, but anyways, let's so let's go over some freight. It's Friday. What I've noticed is that volumes are down on Fridays in general, all across the board on all the platforms, right? And it has been tough to book the Monday load on Friday because of that. It's been tougher to book a load after, well, even after noon, after 12. If you have a truck that got held up at the receiver and now you're looking for a load to help save the day, and it's just not there. And so I encourage everybody that when you do your numbers, you want to account for the days that you're going to lose and it's not your fault. I'm not talking about doing your numbers off of 15 days because you don't want to work, half the month. I'm talking about doing your cost per day at a realistic number because you're going to lose a day. I had a driver that picked up a load of tires this week, and it took forever to load her, and then it took forever to unload her. And the broker completely ghosted me. Now, I did a video on the members only channel about this. Brokerages like that, I hope they go out of business. I hope that AI takes their job. I hope that the AI pricing causes them to not be able to compete against the CH Robinsons and the TQLs, because to totally ghost a carrier when we did everything by the book, everything properly on a load that they knew was crappy, then, that's the kind of brokerages I want to see leveled out. I want to see them gone. And this is why the big boys are winning, because they have the technology, they have the analytics, they have everything they want. And so for them to trash, and for them to completely trash a carrier because they're trying to avoid paying detention, just shows that there's too many carriers out there that they don't care, and that's kind of where we're at. So that's my little rant for today. And completely ghosted. We've even tried calling from different numbers, nothing. So they were very communicative until we got to the shipper. Once I told them, hey, we arrived at shipper, we arrived on time, we're in door whatever, nothing. Crickets. No support whatsoever. So, but anyways. State stores, meaning the hard liquor stores, are run by the state. PA Liquor Board. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. They caught him sneaking into the country, let him in anyways, right? Yeah. And they gave him all these licenses that say no name given. I mean, that it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. And it's like it's a very destructive thing we see going on in our world today. Is like they're not even trying to hide it. Like maybe 10 years ago they would hide it, like at least give the guy a fake name, John Smith or something. But now it's like, we're not even hiding it because there's nothing you can do about it. So I mean, that's the world we live in. There's a lot of things that are outside of your control, but social media will make you think that you should be concerned about or angry about when you literally have zero control over what's happening, right? So let's see. Good morning from Florida. Thank you, CFH. Still pushing driver shortage so companies can get visas for overseas drivers. Yes. See, it's not slowing it down. And that's why the driver shortage is being pushed. It's not that they want a driver shortage or they're taking care of a driver shortage. They want to lower the labor rate, just like they've done in other industries, because people want their Amazon package to ship for $2 instead of $10. So I think PA is the world's largest purchaser of liquor. Huh. Wonder why. I need one of those no-name CDLs so I can get a ticket. So I can't get a ticket. LOL. Right. Yeah. It's interesting, right? So, anyways, let's see here. And I don't try to read every comment because that can get boring. So the comments are on the screen there. But does anyone know why Werner wants to train people from Kenya to learn how to drive trucks? Because they have a shortage of people that are wanting to apply and hire on with them. That's probably why. All right, let's bring the screen up here. Because that's what you're really here for, is the boring load board stuff. You don't want to hear my rants, right? All right, we have market rates. And we'll look at volumes on DAT as well. I do promote the 123 low board. It does have some great tools. I have this open every single day. This is the rate check tool I use all the time. And then let's see, load availability. This is also a good one that I use all the time. Let's see. Good morning, Snorelord. Patrick, what's up? We want the Snorelord rant. Yeah. DIY says he loves hearing angry Snorelord. Answer for any question is money, right? I was watching the interview. Some little kid was interviewing Tom Araya of Slayer. What's up, SSD? And he asked him, simple kid questions. And one of the questions he asked him was, if you get rid of anything in the world, what would that be? And he's like, oh, man, people think war, famine, blah, 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 poverty, whatever. And I don't remember I think I got interrupted, so I never saw what he answered, but my answer would have been greed. Because if you look at greed, that's what causes the hoarding of money. That's what causes corporatism. It's the Bible says the root of evil is the love of money, not money itself, but the love of money. And when you get greedy, that's when a lot of that's when you see the poverty and the homelessness and the and the imbalances and things that we're dealing with every day as a driver, as a carrier owner, and all that. And greed is the one thing I would eliminate, because people get greedy with power, people get greedy with food, people get greedy with money, people get greedy, and in general, it's and that, to me, that would be the one thing to get rid of, right? So anyways, this is the hot market map. Let's switch this for van. Now, red, if you're new here, red is bad, yellow is okay, and green is good. Just because it's green doesn't mean you're going to get the highest rate. It just means it's a little bit easier. You could sort through the 30 loads because the volumes are high and loads are flying off the shelf. Usually van, this is all red here. But Washington, Oregon have picked up a little bit. California has actually died down a little bit. If we go to DAT, they have their dashboard here. Same thing. California's got 2465 coming in and 1465 coming out. So you're not going to get that killer rate coming out of California. However, you're probably getting a better rate going into California. So these are the tools that are necessary to make educated decisions, but they are only valid, really, for the most part, if you're an anytime, anywhere type driver. If you're willing to do any load that makes money and makes you profitable, then these tools are great. But if you only run like what I used to do is Missouri to Ohio and back, well, then I'm only concerned about these areas. But when that area falls apart, then I need to look at what the other stuff is. So what I tried to do is I tried to stay in the states that were predominantly green. So if I see a high paying load going into, say, New Orleans, well, look at that. Volume's down in New Orleans. I go to DAT, go down to Louisiana, 253 in, 201 out. Now, there's more in than out, but also there's not much out. 201 loads. Now, yes, it is a small state, but these are the numbers that you want to look at. Like Illinois, 745 in, 1547 out. If we go to 123, they're showing 507 out and 473 in. So there's still a good in and out ratio. And this is what I look for. And a lot of times I don't need these tools. I know that if I pick a load going from, say, Tulsa to Columbus, then I'm going to have an easier time getting out of Columbus. But every now and then, a couple of times a year, usually right before harvest season and right before planting season, Ohio kind of is doing nothing. And so you look at the other states. Right now, Michigan is doing actually pretty good. Has been for a minute. Let me see. I could be wrong, though. Let's see what's showing. 410 in, 615 out. For a long time, there was more in than out on Michigan. So, but these numbers are just guides. They're tools to help you make better decisions. So if you sit there and see, oh, you're in Chicago and you see that high paying load going to Montana, well, just know that there's only 34 outbound loads on the 123 load board. If you go to DAT, there's 110. There's actually more out than in coming out of Montana. So that's interesting. But let's take a look at that. Let's click on that. Here's the problem with the DAT board that I have found. And here's exactly what I'm talking about. National Freight Logistics has posted Superior. Obviously, they got a customer in Superior. They got one going to Colorado. They got one going to Oklahoma. They got one going to Wichita, one to Louisville, one to Oklahoma City, Wichita, Edmond, Oklahoma. And so this is probably only 2 loads because Oklahoma City and Edmond are all close together. Louisville's probably a fresh one, and Wichita's a fresh one. If we click on one of these, let's see what this is. Van or flatbed. Okay, this is going to be bricks. Bricks or hay? Oh, it says mulch. Okay. They're not going to pay much on this, right? October 23rd to 31st. So basically they've gotten this account and they're just putting it all out there at once. Okay? So what that does is that skews these numbers that you see on the dashboard. Right? So people are like, well, you know, DAT has a lot more loads than 123 or truck stop. That's true, but you're sorting through a lot more crap. Okay? Now I'm not saying that doesn't happen on 123 or truck stop, but I'm just saying that that's a tactic that you have to learn from. Now, here's Georgia, 1352 in, 1326 out. Georgia's been a little bit easier to get a decent rate coming out here. Last week it wasn't. Last week it was like I was hitting brick walls with everything. And so, but a lot of times when you're chasing the money, you're going to be in a bad area. If you got that $4 a mile to go in Montana, just know that you're going to take a hit coming out. Don't celebrate until you figure out what you're coming out with. And if you're really on top of your game, if the market will allow it, then what you want to do is you want to have your backhaul booked before you pick up the load going into Montana. Now, there are times when the market just won't allow that. But you have to say to yourself, oh, I only went to Montana because I got this really great backhaul. But what if that backhaul cancels? Now it just completely threw your strategy out the window. Now, there was a YouTuber that was announcing why he left a certain company. And one of the things, it was a 9-minute long video. And one of the things he said was he was struggling to pay for the repairs of his truck, and he ran a lot of Western states. So he was worried about getting towed out there and not be able to get his repairs out there. Well, here's an idea. Don't run those areas because you're going broke running those areas, right? Now, if you live in Montana, if you live in North Dakota, if you live in South Dakota, you're going to have a different strategy than the guy that lives in St. Louis. That's just the nature of this business. So your goals as a Montana driver are going to be different than goals as a Columbus, Ohio driver. And so you this is what you're dealing with, right? And so a lot of these numbers are just numbers, right? And so if I find myself having an easier time getting out of Georgia, then I look at this and oh, that's why, because there's 3,000 loads coming out versus the 1,500 going in. Oh, wow, they're actually paying a little bit more to go out west. Why? Because California just has got nothing. 3,000 loads going in and 1,857 coming out. Now that number's changing as the brokerages start opening up their offices, right? It just changed again. 3,179, 1,925 out. Let's see what Georgia's doing. Yep. Outbound numbers in Georgia are going down. So these loads are going quickly, which is why I haven't been live as much, because I have to be at the attack between basically 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. But everybody's booked up right now. Knock on wood. So, but when you're dealing with like Indiana and Illinois, which have 4-digit numbers coming out and 3-digit numbers coming in, you can pretty much book something to Illinois or Ohio or Indiana and not worry about your backhaul yet, because there's an abundance of freight. So, just know. And then so if go back to searches here. So whenever National Freight is able to move all these loads, which I doubt they're going to, because these are listed from 1023 to 1031. So they're spamming the board. So where these numbers are going to be skewed for the next week. And this is probably some project, it's loads of mulch. You see this a lot with solar panels. They'll just run one area for a minute and you just continue to do that for a while, and they'll post 20 of these loads on the load board instead of just posting it once and saying, yeah, we've got 20 of these, depending on the brokerage, right? So and there's also banner flatbed, banner flatbed with tarps. So they're probably spamming. And then TQL's obviously got the same shipper, Superior to Wichita. So they're posting the same loads. So National Freight Logistics and TQL are posting the same loads. Are they getting them from the same customer, or is one co-brokering the other? And so this is the kind of crap that you got to sort through if you join the spot market. This is where my eyeballs are. Like, I automatically filter this. I don't fall for the, oh wow, we just got $5,000 to Florida. I wonder why. I'm going to take that load. And so I have to analyze things, and sometimes loads are moving so quick that you don't even have time to analyze it. Let's see, James George, good morning. Also good, In-N-Out burgers. Yeah, the one and only time I went to California, I got an In-N-Out burger. LVCs or SSDs make my wife choke. Thanks. Obviously, that's the only reason to go West Coast, right? So you kind of almost got your wish for one person at least. Iron just announced tour dates. I know, and not one of them is near me. Not one of them. So I'm angry about that. In-N-Out opening office in Tennessee, starting to go nationwide, first time in 77 years. Yeah, but look at Whataburger. It's the shell of what it used to be, right? Shannon's in the house. Let's see. Load Sniper. That's a mass email load list from a shipper, mulch, lumber, brick, all move the same, right? And so you're not going to get a good rate on these. They're going to be like, yeah, they might come up $10. They might come up 100, but that's about it, right? But when you're Montana and you're desperate and you just and you're stressed out and your truck payment's due and you're sitting there, doing YouTube videos about how you can't afford your repairs, then you're going to take whatever you can get out, or you're going to deadhead out, which either way you're losing money, right? So anyways, let's go to a real estate that has real freight. Let's take a look at the 1, 2, 3 low board here so I can show off its tools. Scott City, Missouri, Waterloo, Iowa. $250 a mile. Picks up Wednesday. They're 1126. Cargo Chiefs got it 1128. Rate checks got it a little bit low. So I have noticed that rates are starting to get a little bit above the averages again. Now, DAT, because they want to up my rates every single month, I now have the 15-day averages. And so, I find that the tools are pretty much around the same area. So a lot of these rate check tools are helpful. And and people argue, well, you just got to get what you want. Don't pay attention to those numbers. Well, if you're trying to get $3 a mile for long miles coming out at Miami and don't know why, you need to know why. This helps you understand the process of supply and demand, which is usually the biggest driver of rates. Right? Here's Columbia, Missouri, Crossville, Tennessee. They're at 1050. Rate checks got it at 1305. Cargo Chiefs got it at 1209. So they're a little bit low. Chalk wheels, true. Slide tandems, true. Trailerless and 10 years old, true. So obviously that's coming from their computer or TMS system. Something out there? That dog is on an endless hunt for squirrels. And and we're literally in the peak freight season right now. Here's a shorty, 750 Higginsville to Searcy. Now I know what this is. This is, let's see, yeah, it's like this is going to be cups going to Walmart. This is what this is, and this is why it's good to know the consistent stuff. So this load, Higginsville to Searcy, these pop up every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They usually pay pretty good Saturday, Sunday deliveries, and they usually go to either Searcy, Bentonville, or Clarksville, Arkansas. And it's been this way for years and years. It's been this way. And so if I was ever looking for a great weekend load that was short, that wasn't put me in a bad area, I can almost count on these Higginsville loads. And it's the same broker that's had them forever. So you have relationships with brokers that have those kind of relationships because they want to maintain this and they want to maintain it with good carriers. But I've done many of these loads. Now, back in the day, they were paying $1,000, but obviously times have changed. But they were predominantly $3 a mile, and now they're at $212. But they're light, they're easy. Clarksville, you got the truck stop right next to the DC. Searcy, you've got the Loves and that truck parking that's next to the DCs there. And if it's going to Sam's in Searcy, quick unload time. If you're going to the Walmart side of in Searcy, well, it usually takes a little bit longer. So, but this is usually a good weekend route. Yep, picks up at 11, delivers tomorrow at 7 a.m. So easy run. But then, so let's go back that load real quick. What are we going to get out of Searcy? Probably nothing on a Saturday. Looks like they reset something here. Backhauls. There we go. There's 3 loads going right back from Searcy to Higginsville, 3 going from Marksville to Missouri, 91 going from Searcy anywhere. So let's click on that. Let's see if we keep our weekend going. Yeah, these are all here's one for Sunday, going back up to Michigan for $1.93 a mile. That's pretty. Arkansas has been kind of a sleeper stay. I've been able to get some good rates out of here. There you go. You deliver Saturday, pick this up on Sunday, and then deliver Tuesday at 7 a.m. in Kentwood, Michigan, which Michigan's not bad right now. So there you go. I just booked your whole weekend, right? So now we're not worried about Searcy taking too long to unload. And, 41 mile deadhead to Conway. There's that truck stop there in Maumelle at the 142. They're off I-40. You can hit that real quick. They'll be parking there. Keep your doors locked. And then head up to then Sunday morning. You go in that McDonald's and get coffee, and then head off to Conway, pick up your load. This is probably going to be paper. No, 20,000 pounds. Yeah, paper packaging. So you're picking up paper. I've been to that shipper many times. Not too bad. Get up to Michigan for Tuesday, a nice leisurely run because it's only 779 miles, 2-day transit. You're good to go. Boom, your weekend's booked. And because it's a weekend, you can use that for leverage a little bit. Hey, because they probably have a little bit more trouble moving loads on the weekend. So this is how I look at things, right? See what else we got. Independence to Russellville. That's going to be something coming out of the geospace caves. Picks up Tuesday, delivers Wednesday. 700 And you're not probably, and see right now they're right around the rate check. You might ask for 8, they'll probably settle on 750. If you ask for 9, they're going to hang up on you. But it's a nice easy run. Russellville's not too bad for a van to get out. Arkansas, like I said, I've had decent luck out of Arkansas. Russellville, you're probably going to get something out of Fort Smith or Little Rock. So that's 2 Missouri to Arkansas loads that I found, right? And so what you can do is you can go to this market rate. Let's do St. Louis. No, we'll do Kansas City. Kansas City, Missouri to Little Rock, Arkansas. All right, so what this will tell you, besides the average rates and the history of the lane, is it will show you the backhaul. Look at this. So you look at these numbers to see if we can make this a consistent lane. There's only 1 load going to Little Rock and only 3 loads going to Kansas City from Little Rock. But if we reverse this, it's kind of all over the place on this. It went from 562 to 1751. So I'm not sure. That's probably some extreme thing that was thrown in there in the averages, but 825. So you can pretty much make $800 to $900 both directions and be consistent every single day and do that. Right? That's what I look for. I look at the consistency stuff. So, and that's that market rate is what help you find those things. All right, let's put this back on van. So let's take a look at Ohio. See what we got. Now, the other thing about this is you can look at outbound, interstate, and inbound. So let's say you have your Ohio interstate. Click on that. You only want to run inside Ohio. What can you expect? You can do that. Texas is a good state to do that. So let's go to Texas here. 522 loads. All right. If we go to inbound, there's 704 loads. So getting to Texas is not a problem. So let's look at intrastate. Let's say we want to stay inside the state of Texas. The tough part with this is if you go up to Amarillo, it's tough getting out as a van. If you go down to Laredo, it's tough going in with the van, but it's easy coming out, right? So and then Laredo has its own challenges. The problem is a lot of people don't want to learn their jobs. Well, that's true, but also they have limitations. I became an owner operator because I want to choose where I want to go. I want to go to Montana because it's lovely this time of year, right? That kind of thing. Well, that's fine and dandy, but however, you have to do it. You have to like build your way up to that. You know, the first truck I bought, I had to run my butt off. But then once I got to a certain point, I was able to relax a little bit because my goal was to be able to take most of November and December off because of everything that happens around here during that time of year. But I had to build that. You have to basically build your own freedom, right? If you're paying $260,000 for a Freightliner on a bad lease purchase deal, then you don't have any freedom. There's no way you're going to be able to take a month off if you have to. What if you have a death in the family? What if you break your leg? I've been there. Right? That truck payment don't stop. And so you have no freedom because you miss 1 minute, you lose 1 day because of a breakdown or because of a bad customer. Man, you're behind for weeks. That's not freedom. That's the opposite of freedom, right? You have to build your freedom through your finances, through your resources, and through smart business decisions and running the right markets. This YouTuber that I was talking about earlier that did this video about how he was losing money running out west. Well, he didn't recognize that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be out there doing that. That person is stressed out. That person has no freedom. You have to build your way up. A lot of people that can't handle the freedom that they have when they come to a company like trucking. You can choose wherever you go. All right, cool, man. I'm going to run 1 load a week and I'll be good. But then the truck breaks down. They can't afford it. They can't afford the repair. Me, I've done that. And so I try to teach people to learn from my mistakes. And that's when I realized, well, I need to build things up before I calm things down. So, how far would you deadhead for a better paying load? That is a loaded question, and here's why. It depends on where I'm at, what the market is looking like, and what I got going in, right? Our Georgia, Florida contractors make a killing, and they always come up empty. Always. They'll take $2,100, $2,300 loads that are 500, 600 miles going down, then they'll go right back up. Right? If you're in a place like Montana, you have no choice. You either have to take a load or you're doing a bunch of deadhead. And so what I have discovered, so back in COVID, there were some people that were running these loads from St. Louis to Salt Lake City because they didn't want to run for $1.25, $1.30 a mile that everything else was at in the market around that time. So they were taking these loads in and then deadheading all the way back to St. Louis. When you do your average rate per all miles, you're at $1.25, $1.30 a mile. Because they're making $2.25 coming out or $2.50 and then coming back. If they would take just at least a trash load, say from like Denver to St. Louis or something like that, then you protect that profit a little bit. But it depends on the load that I'm going to pick up. So I have a steady broker that has freight that comes out of Georgia. You know, CFH, you know what I'm talking about. I had a driver in Florida. That brokerage calls me, dude, I've got a load. It's going up to North Dakota. I can't get this covered, which is what I read. It's not exactly what he told me because he didn't want to give away his lack of leverage, right? But I knew he had zero leverage on this. I said, well, the closest truck I've got is 400 miles away. He's like, oh, I'll tell you what if we did this? And he paid for the deadhead, and I knew that load was secure. You know, where you get in trouble with the deadhead thing is, let's say you deadhead 400, 500 miles for a load, and then that load cancels when you get there, when you could have taken something out. That's where you run into that trouble. And so there's a strategy. So it depends on where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I got going in, and where I'm coming out of. So I have another situation where in my own truck, I delivered in Sanger on a Sunday, Sanger, Texas, to Walmart, DC. And there were 2 loads that I could have picked. Actually, it was Saturday, and I was looking for something that picked up on Sunday. I could go into Dallas and get this really heavy water load that went up to Missouri, or I could deadhead further into Oklahoma and make the same exact overall revenue, even though it was more deadhead, with the load that went back up to Missouri. And that made more sense to me because now I don't have to deal with Dallas traffic. Now I'm doing half my miles empty. It was literally the same rate. And so a situation like that was a 150-mile deadhead. I've deadheaded, I want to say 300 or 400 miles. But like when I went to Denver with Landstar, everybody's like, get the beer loads. And these were like $1.20, $1.30, and I was only getting 65% of that. But what I would do is I would be strategic about it. I would get the beer load that went into Shawnee, Oklahoma, all flat down 287. So the weight wasn't a big issue. And the receiver in Shawnee was fairly easy to work with. You could spend the night there at that time. I don't know if you can now. It was an easy run, but it protected the profit that I made with the shopping carts going into Denver. And so you have to strategize how you do that. And most people don't have the patience to think about that. I'll just give me the big money, and then they wonder why they can't get out of Montana. There was a driver I dispatched that ran into that trap. When I gave him the all rate miles, I said, you didn't really do much better, did you? Except you went 2 days without revenue after that. And so these are the things that you have to think about. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. All right. Let's see. Thank you for your membership. Steve, what lanes would you recommend for driving to be consistent if you're looking to stay in the Midwest? Missouri? Okay, well, let's go over that. That's a good question. Thank you. Missouri, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee right now. These, just do a circle. If you live in Memphis, you want to land probably Kansas City or St. Louis or Chicago to get back home. If you live in Michigan, that's pretty easy to do as well. But basically, you're making I-70, pretty much this circle here, this circle here. Because like Missouri's got 334 outbound, Ohio's got 588, Indiana's got 608, Illinois's got 505, Wisconsin's got 255. Now, Wisconsin's a little bit unique. They are not paying to go in, and they're not like giving you an extraordinary rate coming out, because what's happened is Minnesota and Iowa have softened, and so it softens up Wisconsin. And so you have more limited choices up there because you're on, there's nowhere to go but down, right? So, but here you can go back and forth. And so what I've done is I've created triangles that go, and I'll throw Arkansas a little bit in there too. Like Memphis, Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Little Rock, I haven't really played around with as much. But like in this map, there's only 137 outbound. So you might struggle to get out of Arkansas. But what I do is I use that strategy to go up to Missouri. So we'll do a shorty from Arkansas to Missouri, then Missouri to Ohio, Ohio to Kentucky, Kentucky to Tennessee, Tennessee maybe up to Michigan, and then go back to Missouri. If I still have my truck right now, this is what I'd be doing. If a hurricane in Florida hits, then you definitely don't want to chase that money going down, because you're not going to get it coming back up more so. In fact, you'll probably have to get up empty to avoid the storm. Now, when it's wintertime and these states are in some kind of polar vortex, well, guess what? You're going to make a lot more if you're willing to put up with that. But then the weather could delay you, right? But then now you're chasing money up to North Dakota, South Dakota, even more so. Why? Because, they're seeing 40 below wind chills. But these are the states you want to stay in. Maybe Western PA, I'd stay out of West Virginia unless because you're going to pick up in Ohio. Virginia is kind of a trap state, I call it, because you can make good money going in, but then you might struggle to come out a little bit. Usually the best paying thing out of Virginia is going to North, South Carolina, and Georgia, and then now all of a sudden you're in the Southeast trap and you can't get out. Not without taking a hit. So this is where the money is at. And to kind of prove my point, let's do Springfield, Missouri to Columbus, Ohio. You're looking at anywhere from 13 to 1600. And so if we switch this around, you're looking at 1300. So that's a consistent number both directions. And we'll do that on DAT too. Let's do that. Go to tools. They're at 1291. They don't have a reverse option, which is dumb. So we've got to do it. Got to do it manually here. Now, mind you, these numbers, I'm not paying attention to the numbers themselves as much as where they're at, right? They're at 14, but the range is about the same, 12 to 15. And then the other direction was about the same. So that's the kind of lane you want to stay in. Now, the challenge to that is that you're booking a load every day. You're finding brokers every day. You're making 30 phone calls every day. And that could be tiring. So one way to help with that is I find the brokerage that has those both directions consistently. In the day when I was doing that lane, Sage Robinson had the most. But we were still doing triangles. Like I would take a load from Missouri to Ohio, Ohio to Oklahoma or Arkansas, and then I would come back up to Missouri. I'd take a shorty from Oklahoma to Missouri or a shorty from Oklahoma to Arkansas, and then I get back in my lane. And that worked. And I was able to book 2 or 3 loads ahead and still maximize my profits. And so I wasn't fighting every single broker on the DAP board for 30 phone calls or 30 emails that they're not answering, right? I deadhead 180 miles yesterday, pick up a load going 600 miles, but I wanted another 2K and be empty today because I have customer loads to pick up Sunday. So that's a strategic deadhead to make that work, right? Now I'll be deadheading out of Florida today, but I'm okay with that because my deadhead will be 0 next week. There you go. Good morning, Nathaniel. So anyways, these are the strategies that I utilize with the drivers I dispatch at like Trucking Corp. And these are the strategies that if you're self-dispatch, you can do the same thing. Just when you go into Georgia, just know that you're going to take a hit coming out. Or if you go into New York State, or if you go into Maine, you're going to take a hit coming out. If you go into Montana, you're going to take a hit coming out. You're either going to deadhead or you're going to just take that low-paying load to pay for fuel. And most of the time, they're 45.5 on the weight, right? So why is that? Because there's no supply and demand. The supply and demand ratio is off on Montana, right? And this is why the Northeast is kind of funky. So if we go to DAT, let's look at the dashboard. Let's go to Pennsylvania here. Pennsylvania's got 1215 in and 1400 out. Now, what happens with Pennsylvania is that the rest of the market is soft. If you look, if I shut this off, and you may not be able to see it because of the chat, but all these states are red. Massachusetts, it's yellow, which, you know, if you're in Maine, more than likely you're going to deadhead to Massachusetts to take a load, right? But the loads that I had going into Maine were paying extraordinarily well. So taking that hit out of the deadhead to go to Massachusetts wasn't a big deal. Or if it's the weekend, grab a shorty that goes from Massachusetts to Ohio. And then if you need to go back west, that's what you do. So there's a strategy with everything. But see, the whole softness of New England is why it's tough to get a decent, good rate coming out of New York or Pennsylvania, depending on what the product is. Right? But if you notice, all these states are red and yellow except for Jersey. Jersey's another one that gets softened by everything else that's around here. Let's see. What's New Jersey got? 241 outbound here. Let's go to DAT. 1132. So look at the in and out ratios of New Jersey. 476 going in and 1132 coming out. So let's take a look. Of the entire state of New Jersey, which is, you know, but look, it's showing only 17 loads today, 17 results. That's weird. Oh, that was Montana. Hold on. Yeah, results limit reach. So now we can be nitpicky, right? But this is the entire. So what's the highest rate? Your long haul stuff, what's it doing? $1.73 to go to Seattle. Dollar is 64, $1.60, $60, you know. That's not $2 a mile, right? Of course, they're not going to pay $2 a mile to go out west. Why? Because they can put that on a rail, and so you got to be cheaper than rail to make that happen, right? Like look at this, $1.36 to go to Nevada, but $2.74, $3,700 to go to Miami, right? So that's a decent rate, kinda. I mean, you want to get 3 going down to Miami, but those are always your high. Now, if we do the highest rate per mile, it's going to be Virginia, New York, Monroe, Ohio. I'm just going to ignore these NBI logistics. I'm just going to ignore that. But see, the best rates are always going deeper, like Massachusetts, Virginia. There's actually some decent rates coming out of here. 2 drops. Yeah, multiple stop. There's a lot of multiple stop coming out. But see, a lot of these numbers are skewed because this NBI keeps reposting the same load over and over. But your best rates are going to be other Northeast states, with the exception of Virginia. Now, this one going from Barrington, New Jersey to Mason, Michigan, they're at 275 miles. Let's click on this, 45,000 pounds. Second stop in Virginia, Monday delivery in Michigan. So you'd have to look at the miles. But they're $800 over the average. But again, there's a different stop on that. Second stop on that. So, but anyways, that softens these markets, is these bad markets here. So CDN's in the house. I'm not seeing everyone taking notes. You can see into everybody's cameras. That's crazy. I knew you brokers were invasive. All right, CFH, thank you for showing up. Thank you. Desert Oak Pan, what's up? DAT gets hacked daily. I'm surprised brokers are still using it. They recently, I have to authenticate with an app now. Like they've done that. It's either an app or a security key on your computer. So they're trying, like they made it harder for me, but I don't know if they're making it harder for the brokers. or for people to pose as brokers. So let's take a look at reefer here. See what those markets look like. Idaho, Washington, a lot of produce. Colorado. I'm not sure what comes out of Colorado. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at our outbound in Colorado. Wow, 261 a mile to go to Alabama. Let's take a look at that. Second stop. So 2 pickups. Going to Walmart. It's potatoes. Okay, so wrap palletized potatoes, tracking retire required. Can't talk. But then, like, you got this $1.35 to go to Albuquerque. Well, okay, so let's take a look at Albuquerque. Is there anything coming out? And it's van or reefer. That explains why it's cheap. But let's look at New Mexico. Yeah, there's only one load coming out of Albuquerque. So yeah, this is not a good load. Do not do this. Unless you live in Albuquerque and then go home with it. But that's it, right? All right. But anyways, so we answer our question. It's potatoes. So let's look at flatbed and step deck. This is where 1, 2, 3 really kind of shines, because this is what they originally started off doing. Like, look at the volumes here. Alabama, 1,000 outbound. Louisiana, not so much. Houston or Texas area, outbound 305, inbound 771. A lot of intrastate on Texas flatbed. $800 for 227 miles. Let's do the highest rate per mile. Let's see what this does. 300. Let's get rid of that. 550, 250, 400. Not good daily rates. Let's go to sort rate by rate per, or highest rate. Here we go. 1,800 go from Houston to Port Isabel, Laredo to Dumas. StepTech low going from Shiner to Amarillo. Let's click on this one and let's see what's coming out of Amarillo. Zero. So you got to be careful with that. If I had a flatbed, and I've said this before, like a broken record, if I had a flatbed, I would make I-10 and I-20. Those are my corridors, and I would be doing Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. I'd probably still stay out of Florida. Maybe flirt with South Carolina and North Carolina, but I would just be this right here. This is all I would be doing. You're going to tarp for a minute, and you're going to be doing heavy loads. So if you have a truck that can't haul 45, 46, 47, it's a little bit more of a challenge. But if you can haul 47 in a flatbed, you're good to go with this whole corridor right here. So that's what I would do. Flirt with Arkansas a little bit, and you're good to go. Those MBI loads are all scams. Check the emails on them. Let's do that. Which is why they haven't. Look, if there's money on something, there's a reason, right? And a lot of it's because of scams. So let's take a look at that. Oh, wait. No, we don't want that. Cancel. Email me to get the details. Loads@dryvandepartment.com. You know what? Let's do something here real quick. Let me open this screen here real quick. Let's check their MC number. Oops, I don't want that. I'm not doing that on the screen. I want to. So their MC number is, it's a 5-digit number, 68073. Let's just Here, let's just do this here. Yep, there they are. Well, they're showing green. No website. So this would be an easy target for scamming, right? 37 days to pay. But yeah. See, and that's the thing with new people in the spot market, they don't see that. They just assume everything's legit on here. And so they're at 2200 on a load that's paying normally around 1105. That should be your first red flag. And I tell the drivers all the time, if you see big money on something, then there's probably a reason, especially coming out of New Jersey to go to Indianapolis. But yeah, you're right. And so how many of those NBI loads were on there? A ton of them. I had one broker that posted on DAT. There was I didn't have it, but I saw it, and they were like, in the comments they said Zelle 50/50. Like they weren't even paying, like they would pay you through Zelle, right? And of course I went and checked their credit. Of course, it was red. Actually, no, it said no records found on that brokerage. So you got to have a good vetting for the brokers, and we use our factoring company. So eastern side of Arkansas with flatbed. I've been doing well since between South Carolina and Memphis, right? So you found the lane and you stuck with it. I got 220 mile out of Miami, wow, to Memphis a couple weeks ago. Tarp flatbed, nice, good deal. So, anyways, if you want to try the 123 low board for free for 30 days, 48065 is my code. Use it. Tell them I sent you. And that helps the channel tremendously. The other ways to help the channel is scrolling on the banner below. I appreciate everybody's patience for me not going live as much. I have been going live a little bit more when I walk the dog. They're on the Snorelord OG channel. Make sure you check that out. And I appreciate everybody that has supported me all these years and are still watching me, even though I do the boring load board stuff and I'm not really doing anything exciting except telling you what I see. So with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. So I'm not going to make any promises. So there you go. So peace out. And maybe I'll do a guitar live feed. And thank you for the members. I've been doing more membership stuff thanks to a friend of mine telling me I needed to do that. So peace.